Makes you wonder if Journey or ChatGPT has better describe. Depends on what you're trying to describe. Like, if you've ever tried describing something that's predominantly text, things get weird. I mean, very weird. Here's the description of something and the image it was describing. I'm regularly describing meme images just because the results it gives are hilarious. Confirm that cars do not run out of hockey. Are you sure you can confirm that? Toaster pastry thing. Maybe. We'll see. Actually, I'm not going to post the describe for this. I'm just going to post it and let you guys describe it on your own. The results are kind of insane. What's the task? The task is just run that through describe.
J'ai tourné une vidéo pour m'exprimer sur ma vie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll let everybody join and then we'll get started.
Looks like we're about over with.
All right. Thank you everybody for coming. This is the weekly Midjourney office hours. We do this every week at Wednesday noon Pacific Standard Time. Basically what we do is we talk about what we're working on and what we're thinking about. We take questions and then that's it. So let's get started. The main things that are coming out are we're going to release a new web editor this week, hopefully. Maybe today or tomorrow, hopefully pretty soon. That combines the reframe and the repaint or vary region controls into sort of one more coherent, unified thing. It's probably not perfect. It probably could have more features, but I think we're pretty happy with even the early, not so perfect ones. And I think it's a big improvement. It feels like it simplifies the buttons and it gives people more functionality. So anything that's both simplifying and more empowering, I think is a big win. I think it's really challenging right now in the space to to do things that are both making things simpler and better. Where it's really easy to make things simpler by like taking out all the controls, and it's really easy to just make things better where there's like 100 times more controls. So I think we want to try to avoid going to like something that's like super complicated, because then almost nobody uses any of the features. But then we also don't want to make it super simple where it's just text prompting, because that obviously has limitations too. So the editor thing is looking pretty good. The editor only lets you edit Midjourney images right now. We're probably going to look at letting you edit non-Midjourney images in the future too. We're just trying to work on the moderation and the flow for that still. So that'll probably come at some subsequent date. But that will also come. And then that's the closest thing to launch. The next thing. The next thing is we're going to release some like personality survey things to try to understand the link between personality and aesthetics. So that'll be really cool. We are working on releasing some demographic stuff too that lets you kind of explore the aesthetics of different demographics. I would say that that's working now. We're almost ready to give it to guides and mods, but we kind of found like a mode to exaggerate things a bit, and then the exaggeration is really interesting too, like exaggerate the differences between different groups. And so we're debating on that on the algorithms there a little bit. So that's getting delayed a little bit. So maybe by the end of the month we'll do that. We're trying to do a lot of things around like a 6.2 launch around the end of the month. Could be a week longer, but so there's a lot of questions right now about what we should launch before 6.2 versus with 6.2. And I can't say I know the answers to that yet because it's kind of arbitrary and it's like about scheduling. And so like, how do you release things is a question. But, we might release a lot around the same time. We are starting to test a depth control net with the guides and mods. People are pretty happy with it. I'm not sure whether it should go in like a different place because it feels more like a photo filter, and I'm not super into that. But it does do a lot of really cool things, so it's definitely like a win in general. So trying to think about how we might organize that next. The depth control net only works with 6.0 right now because it was trained before 6.1. So we don't really want to release that. We could train a new one for 6.1 instead of 6.0, but then we're going to go out with 6.2. So again, this is kind of coming into release scheduling. So I'm not totally sure it makes sense for us to train a depth control net on 6.1 when we're about to come up with 6.2. So we might just try to align everything after 6.2. 6.2 model is training right now. It's not in testing yet, so hard to say, if it immediately is perfect or if we have to train it a second time. It should be finished training the end of this week. So then we'll test it. It'll either immediately work and then we put it into guides and mods, or we would either spend another week tuning it or we would spend another week retraining it. So I would hope that 6.2 should be ready for testing in the next week or two. And then after a little bit of testing, we would release it. Usually we test things with guides and mods somewhere between 1 day and 2 weeks. Like sometimes releases are kind of obvious, like, yeah, this is definitely good. And sometimes releases are kind of like, eh. So for personalization, it took a really long time to get it good. That was probably the longest one we've ever done for a guides and mods release thing. Like that was like a month or two, or maybe longer. It was really long. We tested like 9 different versions of personalization with the guides and mods. That was bad. I think everybody's eyes were bleeding by the end of it. But yeah, most things we often just test for a day and then release it. And so, yeah, so that's coming. Feel pretty good about 6.2. It should be better in all the ways that 6.1 is better, but more better still. I think we're going to start to try to put some of the V7 data sets into the 6.2, so that should all improve some of the prompt accuracy as well. Hard to say exactly what the limits are there. Like, is it going to be a lot better or just a little better? It's probably more than a little better, but it's not like a full V7 yet, so it's hard to tell. I think V6.2 will be bigger than the 6.1 release. Yeah, I think it will almost certainly be bigger than the 6.1 release. but it won't be as big as the 7.0 release. Yeah, we are debating about having bigger batches on the website. Whether it's batch 8 or batch 16 remains to be seen. We are doing some testing, but we might. It looks like it might be possible from a compute standpoint to start making the batches bigger. So we're going to start testing that more in the next week or two. We're trying to sort of look at some final algorithm things that will decide whether it's 16 or 8, but based off that, we'll start to test things there. Let's see. Dev control net, bigger batches, editor, 6.2. That's a lot of stuff. So all that should have. Oh, and then we have a new personalization system that's coming. The new personalization system, I probably won't say exactly how it's going to work, but it feels a lot better in terms of like a more coherent long-term way of managing personalizations. It will allow you to start having many personalizations. So you might have like 10 models there. So we'll have like more of a system for managing many different custom models. It feels pretty good at a high level. We haven't begun testing it with the guides and mods. I think we hope to start testing it next week. So that's something that we could release that's not related to 6.2 because the personalization system right now is kind of independent of the model type. Like it's independent of the model, so we could release that for everything. But it's hard again, a little bit hard to say. Is that at the end of the week? Is that the end of the month or not? Yeah, because it's kind of a big change because it's like a totally new way of managing personalizations. So I think that one might need a week or two of testing. Personalization in general is really hard to do testing with. But I think the important thing is that we feel like we have a new scalable personalization system. So now that, like assuming that there's no surprises, that means that like we're going to start moving to the next phase of personalization where everybody has lots of models. So you might have like one model for every project and that'll be normal. And that'll be cool. Yeah, and then I'm excited for that. I'm very excited for that. Yeah, so that's new personalization, 6.2, editor, possibly bigger batches, depth control net. It's like 5 things we're looking at over the next 2 to 4 weeks. So pretty good bunch of things that are coming on the pipe. All of these things have been in work for a pretty long time. So like the V7 data set that's going into 6.2, some of the new reinforcement learning stuff, like a lot of this stuff's been going on for a long time. So it's like a bunch of things kind of aligning all at once. And then past that, we're training some of the V7 models right now and some of the new video models. And we're almost ready for the big 3D data collection phase, which will be necessary before the major 3D model training runs. So I think in the next month, we have those 5 or 6 things. Then over the next 3 or 4 months, say like by the end of the year, we have the 3D models, the video models, the V7, the V7, possibly some V8 like thing, or we don't know if we're going to call it V7. Like there might be like, I don't know exactly how we're going to name it, but it may or may not be like a different type of model. And then we've been looking at some drawing stuff too that we're optimistic about. We got a really good drawing data set of people drawing, so it makes it easier for us to teach the system to work with people when they're drawing into it. So I'm very excited for the drawing thing too. So that's like drawing faster images, like faster, more real-time stuff, 3D stuff, video stuff. A lot of stuff coming by the end of the year. I don't see why any of it would take longer because it's all kind of going already. I think probably the biggest question is like when video gets to the point where we're happy with it. But I think the video team is relatively optimistic right now. Like they think that things are starting to look pretty good already. And the main thing missing is just training the bigger final models. But I don't think it makes sense to try to train a big V6 video model. I think it makes sense to do the final video model trainings after the V7 release, because the V7 architecture is a lot cleaner for these things, so it'll be faster to iterate on. So that's looking pretty good too. Yeah, we're gonna try opening up the website to more and more people too. I don't know exactly when that's gonna be, but relatively soon. I think we might have lowered the number of images people need to try the website to 10. I think
We
we
did,
did.
yes.
Yeah. So anybody who has at least 10 images on Midjourney can use the website now. So hopefully that's everybody on here. So if you haven't used the website, try the website. We're doing that as we like get very close to opening up to more people. Kind of trying to do our more final stress tests. Yeah, relatively soon we'll open it up to everybody. But there's like a couple last little things we want to do. And so we're almost there. I think like the editor feels really nice. I kind of wish I would almost wait for the personalization stuff because that's gonna feel so nice too, but probably won't. Yeah, I think the things that start to feel magic. I think one of the things that I use the website by default now personally, but I think that there's just it's like missing a little magic, and so I think we might be adding rooms. Oh yeah, we might adding room syncing soon. I don't think we launched that yet. We're going to sync some of the rooms between the Discord server and the website, like prompt chat and super users and some newbies, a few of those rooms, and see how that goes. So that way, there's kind of always activity in all the rooms. And then, yeah, so I was trying to get the rooms more active is like one of the magic things, but then I think I've slowly realized that I think the magic is going to come from different types of areas than what Discord does. So I think the bigger batches is like magic. The personalization thing we're going to add there, like multiple personalizations, is magic. The editor is a little magic. So I think it's just trying to find new forms of magic that the website has that Discord doesn't have. It's kind of the key challenge, and we're kind of getting there now. So yeah, I don't know exactly what that means for the exact day that we open up the website, but yeah, relatively soon. Um, yep. And so a lot of stuff happening. We feel pretty good about it. Obviously, there's more that could be happening, but I think maybe not. Obviously, everything could happen now, but I think on the whole, that's a lot. Um, anything else? We're gonna try to add some more explore stuff and some more describe stuff and some more uh some more describe stuff, some better explore stuff, a new top bar design. But I think that all's been lagging a little bit. We are gonna change some of the rating image things to have more rating image tasks. So if you don't want to rate for aesthetics, you just want to rate for coherence because you're obsessed with coherence, we'll let you do that. And that'll help us improve each of those things. Yeah. We're gonna have to change the font. Yeah, there's a bunch of little things, but like, yeah, things kind of like what I've been saying. So all in that track. Uh, yeah, I think that's it. A lot of stuff. There's big secret projects too, still going. I'm sure we'll announce them by the end of the year. We're not announcing them now. Um, but ambitious things. And that's it. With all those yeah, I know everybody wants subfolders, but I hope you can understand that with all those features coming, it probably makes sense to release those things before we do like subfolders or something, because there's like so many things that make a big difference. Yep. Cool. I guess we'll do a lightning round for questions. Let people ask questions in the VC text channel. Anybody wants to ask questions in the VC text channel? It's not updating for me. Did it just get stuck?
It might have. I'm not seeing anything after my message.
I don't see your message. Okay, come on, Discord. You had one job. I want one chat room working. Oh, it seems to have broke. Ah. Okay, I'm complaining. David has complained. Complaints launched. Complaints landed. Ballistic complaint missiles. Oh, did it just appear?
I got a
No,
handful
some
of other
messages,
messages.
but not a lot of messages.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a gun. Nope. We're still 2 minutes ago. Sucks. Okay, let's just have a few voices up here and we'll go through voices. Sorry, everyone.
There's a chance that might be broken too, but I can't confirm yet.
Okay.
So there's one that has hand raised that I've been trying to dismiss, and I don't see any more coming up.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Okay.
there's everything at once.
Okay. Apparently, like a 500 people is too much. It's kind of bummer. Okay, a lot of things just came through, so I'm gonna start looking at questions. No updates for Niji Journey for a while. I'm sorry. The Niji team is more working on video, and it's like way too much work to port features over at this point. So we're gonna try to unify Niji and the regular models more for V7, but until then, Niji's just gonna fall behind. I don't know how much of the Flux data is Midjourney images, but I do know that the person who took down our servers scraping Midjourney images is on the Flux team. The whole Stable Diffusion team basically moved to Flux, so it's not a great look, but it's okay. I'm happy that they seem to be having fun. I definitely would rather people join our team because it seems like a shame for people to work so hard just to be the second best model. They're not really better to push the frontiers and just kind of focus on making the world as good as possible, but open source is good sometimes, I guess. More deep fakes for everyone. Any clues about the secret projects? There's a lot of hardware secret projects going on. Most of everything is related to Midjourney synthetic media stuff. We have one big secret project that has no relation. Well, maybe we have a two. We have a couple small secret projects. We have two small secret projects that aren't related to image generation, and then one big one. There's about 50 people at Midjourney right now. The Niji team is working on video. The editor prompting is going to be a single prompt. Like when it's like if you drag the borders away from the image, it's inpainting. If you drag them in, it's cropping. Stuff like that. I think there isn't like exactly a zoom in, but like you kind of can zoom in by cropping and then doing an upscale afterwards, but the upscaling is not automatic or anything. I would rather focus on V7 than 6.2, but unfortunately, the V7 has like a maximum speed it can go at, which kind of sucks, but we're trying our best. Like I wish we could I wish we could put 8 mothers together and make a baby in 1 month, but we can't. The V7, I think the problem, I think what we fucked up with V7 this year is V7 was kind of meant to be a system that upgraded every single part of our entire stack. And if we had focused on like pushing updates out, instead of trying to update like 6 things at once, if instead we broke it up into 6 releases where we updated one thing at a time and released something, we would have had a lot more model releases. And I think we're going to do better at that in the future. I think everyone's acknowledged how we fucked up there. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, there are definitely there are the new models with less. There are like going to be new models with less restrictions. I think we wanted to kind of. I don't think we wanted to like necessarily. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think we'll let somebody. I think when it comes to like making images that make people angry or nudity, we'll let other people push the boundaries on that. I think we would rather push the boundaries in terms of like aesthetics. Yeah, we'll let other people push boundaries around other things. Um, Editor should work for, I think it works for all the versions. Coherence is somewhat subjective. Um, yeah, I don't usually think of open source ones as being free because it's like, yo man, I have a $3,000, I have a $1,000 GPU, so I can avoid. It's so free in comparison to the $10 a month Midjourney. Like if you buy an expensive computer, you can render things locally, but then usually what people say is they're like, oh my God, I can render one image in 1 minute, or even one image in 30 seconds, and then you compare that to Midjourney where you can render like whatever eight jobs in parallel with 4 different images. So you render 64 images simultaneously. And so I think one of the hopes on the cloud systems, which is like we're cloud-based platform, is that you can sort of temporarily take control of 64 GPUs simultaneously. But that's not really going to be possible with anything locally. And so I'm actually not sure. I feel like if you buy a $1,000 GPU and then you use it one image at a time, it's not necessarily much cheaper than just making everything through Midjourney. I think it's not. I think it's both slower, less efficient, and more expensive, but you're paying $1,000 up front. So, I mean, if we could have a plan where you pay $1,000 to us and then images, seem really free for a while, but I think it's kind of a disingenuous pricing argument. Like the reason why it should be cheaper for us to do things than locally is because we buy GPUs and then we let everybody share them. And so the cost of the GPU is split among all the people who share them. So in theory, if like each person uses a GPU 25% of the time, it should be 4 times cheaper if everybody's sharing it. So in theory, we get very efficient GPU utilization, which is one reason why we have like the relax mode and stuff like that. So in theory, it should be pretty good. Like the cloud-based is the only, I don't think it makes sense to do local models unless you're trying to like make like crazy porn stuff and you're paranoid. Um, yeah. I think it's kind of, but yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't feel totally rational. I mean, but people are emotional creatures, and we can recognize their, emotions. Um, but I mean, there's reality too. Um, I don't necessarily think we're going to be the best partners for companies who want APIs because like the API business model is much worse than like a subscription business model. So if somebody pays us like a penny per image, it's really hard for us to like fund the servers and the research. So in general, we haven't done any major partnerships yet. We've talked people about doing partnerships where we like kind of give people almost like free trials, like they could get, 25 free images, and then past that they have to have a Midjourney subscription. But I don't know if we want partners that like pay us 1 penny an image, because then we don't really have a relationship with the people anymore. And it's also not enough money to like sustain ourselves from a research standpoint. I think that a lot of the open source companies, they'll do APIs because it's sort of, and the open source is sort of marketing, so that they can try to get Disney to pay them for a custom model, and then Disney paying them for a custom model is their business model. But for us, we do have to be a little careful with the types of partnerships we do with people, because like we don't have investors, we're just funded by the community. And so we can't really just do things that like lose a ton of money and then raise more money. So we're trying to not do the Uber thing where like Uber lost billions of dollars a year for, a decade. And then I think they are only just starting to make money now. We could do that, obviously, if we wanted to, but my hope is that we can kind of remain an independent entity with no investors, and use and then kind of be more long-term minded and not sort of super commercial. Yeah. I mean, usually if you're just trying to make money, you kind of have to liquidate the entire world, try to do it. Like, you know, like a venture-backed company right now is going to be like, I'm gonna liquidate Hollywood or something. And it's like, well, that kind of doesn't sound fun and kind of sounds weird, and I don't want to do that. So like a lot of the other companies would be really aggressive with sort of the types of stuff they work on, whether it's like, missiles or trying to replace parts of the Hollywood industry. And we're for us, I'm like, I'm happy if just like if there's an old lady making ducks, I'm happy with that. Like I don't have to be super commercial, which is nice. It'd be interesting to see what that does long term for us. Like, can we stay independent? Can we sort of remain sort of not super commercial? I think so. Like, I think we might add like enterprise seat management at some point, just so that like if a team wants to like buy 10 seats and then assign them to people, they can do that. But I don't think we want like a sales team. But in general, we're going to try to be sort of non-commercial, and we're going to try to just work with the community, and I think the community will support us, and I think we'll work on more ambitious long-term things, and I think everything will be good. In general, like uh, the company that's best takes like 80% of the value of the space. So like for example, even though like maybe iPhones aren't that much better than Android phones, they take like almost all of the profit of phones. So I think it's possible that just as long as we're really good, you know, we will be a strong business enough to basically kind of keep our core integrity of like not being hyper commercial. And that sounds kind of conflicting. What I mean is that like I think that by being the best, we will have the safety to do the right thing and be long-term minded. And I think the people who are not necessarily as focused on being the best will end up not being long term. They'll always be trying to copy somebody else in the short term, and they'll be generally trying to sort of hyper commercialize. But because they have less money, they'll be more desperate to do things that maybe aren't good. So, I think that by being really good, we can kind of be high integrity and long term minded. Um, Obviously, it's somewhat of a new thing people haven't tried before, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And so far, it's working pretty well. Um, there's been a lot of people announcing competitive things, in the last week, but I would say our revenue doesn't seem to be affected. So, like, our revenue today was higher than yesterday. So it seems like we're pretty stable. And it's been kind of weird in general. We've been very stable in general. It doesn't feel like we're very affected by what other people are doing. It seems kind of like there's two tiers for the market. There's the free tier and there's the paid tier. And it seems like if people want to pay for something, they'll pay for the best, which is us. But if people don't want to pay for something, they'll just use a free thing. And then the free people are all like viciously competing against each other. So that's what it seems like it's going on right now. We're always kind of trying to keep our eyes open and try to understand how it works, but so far it's how it seems like it works. Anyway, outside of that, you'll be able to crop. You can outpaint with the editor. We're going to try to make the editor faster, like turbo mode by default, but not more expensive on the website, just because we think that the speed is important and we can lose a little money there because we're not super commercial and it's just a better experience. Yeah, the image filters are still a little strict. We'll work on that at some point, but I don't know if it's a huge issue right now still. Um, uh, yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. I heard some people like, yeah, rendering an image on their laptop, but it took them like 2 minutes. I actually tried it once on my MacBook. It was just so painful to make one image over 2 minutes. I'm like, bro, I could make like 30 or 40 images over the same period of time, you know? I really do think making a lot of, images is more fun because you get to kind of explore the space, you know? Um, yeah. Hope everyone's having fun. I'm just trying to scroll through questions. It's just like, how will we get Midjourney video games if there's no way to interact with the system? We just have to wait for a bigger Midjourney team? I'm not sure what that question means. Sorry. There will be real-time open world simulations, but it's probably not this year. Yeah, there's not really any Midjourney drama, I would say almost. So we're pretty lucky. All the other companies seem to have a lot of drama. I think it's because like when other companies are focused, if you have a company where people are too focused on like ego or money, then like ego and money people, they have a lot of drama. Whereas we're pretty low ego here. We're not focused on money, so it's hard to have like a lot of drama, you know? We're just trying to make cool stuff, you know? Uh, I'm trying to scroll down. Um, the new personalization is based off ranking images right now. The new personalization will have new options too. I'm not going to totally talk about it yet, but I think it'll be really easy. You're going to like it. I mean, Midjourney could make an API. I think the challenge is like, yeah, I don't know. So many like people make so many shitty things with the APIs. Like, I don't know if I want to be a part of that. Like, there was one company that was like, fire all your artists. We'll make it easy, and we use a Midjourney API. And I'm like, I didn't give you guys an API. And like, yeah, we're botting you, but it's a good product. And I shut them down. And like, why are you shutting it down? It's a good product. I was like, it's bad vibes, man. Like, that's not what we're about. And they got really angry. I was like, why don't you get like we're just making a good product? Like, and it was a bunch of crypto guys, and I was just sort of trying to explain to them how, just because they're about money doesn't mean that we're about money. And so I worry that if we make an API, we kind of have to like be locked down and kind of like shut people down who are just sort of distasteful. And I think we will do that, but it's like yet another thing, and yeah, I don't know. Without doing like a more of a personal use API, that could be kind of interesting. but then we have to police that constantly, you know? And we definitely see what people try to build with APIs through our service, and just a lot of things is really bad. Like, so people like a lot of people try to like use AI images on stock photo websites, and we shut them down. You know, like or like it's just like bad stuff. Like it doesn't feel like the APIs are good stuff usually. Like it's usually like the bad faith actors more than the good faith actors. Um, I'm happy everybody likes the community. I really like the community too, so I'm gonna try to have more community stuff. Yeah, 6.2 should have better hands and faces. I definitely think that like there is a way to do the API where it would be good, but I think it's just like a lot of work right now. And I think if my goal is to like make the world better, it makes more sense for me to just directly make the things to make the world better than to make an API and try to wait for somebody to get like an investor to give them money to make something, you know? Like if you really want to make something using a Midjourney API, I would say you probably should consider just joining the company, because the best way to get stuff to people is if we just get it to people, you know? And no API thing is really gonna have as much of an advantage as that, you know? Uh, yeah, we could have a vibe police. Vibe police. I don't think the API will help the business. Yeah, I think like we're kind of a gym membership right now. So if somebody doesn't make images, that's when we make money, versus like an API business is kind of like charging somebody every time they use a treadmill, which is something that the gyms don't do, because it's, you know, it ends up seeming more like it ends up seeming more expensive. Like if you think about it, like if it's like $60 a month for a gym membership, but you go like 4 times a month and then you use 5 machines, you'd be putting like $1 or 2 in every machine, it would just feel really bad. Versus getting $6 a month, you're like, oh, it's a gym membership, but it's there whenever I need to. So it's like there's a reason why some of the business models are better than others. They like literally feel better, you know? So like we do a lot of things right now because of that. Like the some people use relax mode, and they probably use like $1,000 a month of compute, and that's okay. But then the people who then maybe don't use it that much that month are kind of pitching in to let those people use it more that month. So kind of like if you use it a lot one month or not a lot of the month, you're kind of all sharing the costs. Whereas if people paid like $2 every time they used a machine, then it doesn't really work the same way. If you want to use it a lot, then you just have to drop like $1,000, and so it's kind of weird, but it feels like in a lot of ways what we're doing here is everybody's chipping in, and all the money everyone chips in goes to these shared computers that everybody's using, whether it's on relax mode or the fast mode, and shared computers that go to all of our research teams. And so it's all kind of a really special thing, and it does feel like the right way to run things. Um, yeah. We have some really cool storytelling stuff, and I'm debating on whether to ask them to just present to the community or try to launch it to the community. So we're doing a bit of a review right now around like how to get it out. I think stealth mode is now shared between the website and Discord. I don't think the artists necessarily use the APIs, because APIs are like programming. Midjourney models don't train on other Midjourney models, so we don't do that. We were going to sync the preferred options between the alpha website and the other stuff, but we didn't do it. Ooh, Vibe Police. They're kind of cool. I like the Vibe Police. We should have like a Vibe Police squad. It's like the guides and mods could have like the Vibe Police squad. I think that'd be kind of like a good vibe. Um, Yeah, it's a good example. A lot of the people on the, a lot of yeah, a lot of people feel like everything on the internet should be free, but then when we forced everything on the internet to be free, then it became kind of like an advertising hellscape. So in some ways, it's good to pay for goods and services, rather than being the goods and service yourself. Um, Also, a lot of the companies like Mistral who were open source in the beginning, they're like not open sourcing their biggest models now because they just can't afford to anymore. So there's a lot of people talking. There was like a Eric Schmidt. There's like the ex CEO of Google talking about how like open source works really well when the software doesn't cost a lot to make, but as the software starts becoming like $1 billion, it's not clear that open source actually endures the same way. Like it might be the end of open source in some ways, just because the raw capital expenditure of producing some of the models. So it's interesting to see how no one really does. Like open source, actually, they have a definition for it because otherwise everyone can call anything open source. And true open source means that you can use the code and there's no restrictions. Whereas almost everything that people are publishing now in AI is no longer exactly open source. It's either non-commercial or you have to obey certain rules. So a lot of pure open source people complain about it, saying it's like it's kind of fake open source and it's for marketing. It's kind of true. A lot of investors think that open source is more of a marketing thing in general, but I mean, obviously, I think open source it's obviously a good thing for sort of academic and open research. But then it's obviously a bad thing for like making it really easy for people to make really targeted deepfakes. So like we can do safety systems on our cloud system, but you can't really do safety systems on the open source systems. So, I mean, obviously, like all of that's going to eventually happen no matter what. But, our general philosophy has been to make good things easy to do and make bad things hard to do. Because often just trying to do that alone creates values, like it's not like it's impossible to steal, to steal from a bank or something, right? But it's hard to steal from a bank. And so people don't generally try to steal from a bank, and we have values in our society saying that you probably shouldn't do that. So like in general, I think like being a good participant in society is trying to make like bad things harder to do and good things easier to do. But yeah, I think we've been trying to do individual image weight stuff on the website, but it's not as important as all the other stuff. We have thought about doing an advertise. People occasionally ask us like to do the math on an advertising version of Midjourney where you have to like watch ads every time you make images. And like you could do it, but God, that'd be hell. Like I think you kind of don't want to mix advertising with creative platforms because like watching ads like destroys the creative mind, I think. So I don't think we're gonna make a pixel art model. Just like I don't think we're gonna actually necessarily have an anime model in the future. I think the V7 models will just be good enough to do everything. I think that's our hope. There might be different modes, but there won't be different models. Um, yeah, 6.1 is pretty good at anime. I think the 7.0 will be much better at anime than Niji is. I think the Niji team feels like that. The Niji team is not working on sort of like better image models right now because they feel like that the current Niji model is already like good enough for anime, and they feel like at this point V7 and V8 will basically keep doing a better job, and that's good enough. And they feel like the next biggest thing that would be important for anime users are like the videos, like anime video type stuff. And so that's why the anime team is pretty focused on that right now. But we'll see. I know people like Niji in some ways better than Midjourney, but in general, like the normal model, but I don't think that will be true in the V7 anymore. Yeah, I mean, at some point the image models will be basically perfect, but there'll be other elements that are always changing. And then there's still then the video, and there's the 3D, and then there's the real time. There's a lot of controls, and then like eventually I think what it's not really about image models. It's about the open world. It's the real time open world simulation. So, the game. It's not the name of the game isn't images. It's real time open world simulation. And so the question is when does that happen? I think we could see the first real time open world stuff in like a year, but it's going to be probably pretty expensive, like really expensive and not accessible to everybody. And so I think it might take 3 or 4 years for the real-time open world simulators to get as cheap as Midjourney is. And so you're talking about 3 or 4 years until they're cheap. And then over like a 3 to 4, so real-time open world simulation means it's 3D. It's like Midjourney, but it's 3D. It's video. You can move around. Everything's moving. You can interact with things. It's like more like a video game, but it's like an open world simulation. I can keep walking around and keep changing things. So, I think that that is going to take a few years to get to be cheap. But I think by the time that that becomes cheap, we'll be looking at a lot of hardware things, whether it's like AR systems or new types of user interfaces. There'll be like a lot of new kinds of things that like I think over 5 years it's going to be a little bit more about hardware than about just the models, because I don't think the best way to interact with these systems is going to be like a first person shooter. Yeah, it might be a little like a metaverse, but I kind of hate the metaverse words. I never want to use it. I think the open world simulations, yeah, I just call them like open world simulations or just sims maybe. Um, yeah, I don't really like to call it holodecks per se, but OWS, that's kind of cool. Or just OWS or just sims, they're just simulations, but I mean people don't get it, so I have to call it open world simulation. Yeah, I don't think that Niji the V7 will be better than the Niji V6 in every way, just like how V6 is better than Niji V5 in every way. So I think that in theory we could spend a lot of time and make a V7 Niji that's a little better than the V7, but I think it's just not worth it at some point. It makes more sense to put that extra energy into video. Like you get more, like we could get an extra 20% anime image value, or we could get the 2x anime video value, and so it makes more sense to do the anime video. Yeah, makes more sense to do the anime video than to try to make the images slightly better for anime. We could do a vector model, but we'll probably do raster and we'll probably do transparency first. I think CREF probably needs to be retuned for 6.1 or 6.2. But I think we had some ideas on how to make CREF better for new versions of 6.0. But in general, CREF is just not what it should be, and it'll probably be more of a focus after the 7.0 launch. Hopefully my voice isn't breaking up too much. I think the CREF is just going to be a lot better. And I think some people complain that when you move something from the image to the CREF, it's like to the Midjourney, it's like not as accurate in 6.1 as it is in 6.0, which is true. But then if you kind of have a character in 6.1, you're kind of trying to keep it consistent. That should be pretty good still. So I think that importing things into the model has always been a limit with the current system, and it will just be better in V7. The depth control net means that you kind of keep the shape of the image, but we change the texture. You don't have to import depth maps, you just import an image, and it kind of keeps the shape the same, but changes the texture. Feels a little bit like a photo filter, and I don't like that, but I'm hoping we might make it in a different part of the website at some point, or do something that organizes those things differently. I don't think we would download the depth map. I don't know why people want the depth map for things. It's not really a special depth map thing. I'd rather not. We were going to do a new describe for the website, but we didn't really like it, and we're going to change it again. So we started trying to do something, but we didn't like it. Is that on the alpha site still? Hopefully not. Oh, that's stupid. Why did that go there? Yes, the alpha site might have a describe thing on, right? Or I don't know if it does or doesn't. It's not supposed to, but there was a describe. Basically, we had an idea for how to do describe well on the platform, and then somebody's like, "Well, let me just make it a separate tool for it." And then he made it. He's like, "Actually, I hate this," and we decided to change that, take it out. Yeah, but we have some better ideas on how to do describe on the website, so we are going to definitely improve that. We're not really looking at the legacy website, so if you're trying to use the legacy alpha, you really should stop soon because it might not work forever. I think we looked at the legacy alpha stats and like only like 1,000 people use it, so it's hard to justify doing something for a very small percentage of users. I would very strongly recommend that you do not use the old legacy alpha website. But we will improve the describe on the main website. We have a pretty good path for that. Probably in the next few weeks. So it's hard to exactly predict the timings. Okay, I think we're starting to get through all the questions now. We can do a couple voice questions. I mean, at some point I'm going to kill myself with all the, it's going to be a little tiring sometimes. So I'm trying to figure out how to like I want to keep going all the time, but sometimes I want to not push myself and just push all the other things. So we can try a voice question or two and then just last lightning round and then give it another 30 minutes or so. Hello.
Hello. Nice.